humans. Welcome to the M-Word podcast, brought to you by Martin. That's me.
And Matt.
That's him. Will, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that's okay.
Quick, we want to talk about your background, but I just want to ask you a question to start with before I start tapping the desk. I was listening to an interview of you after the win at Samarkand. Mm-hmm. You can explain what that is. And you mentioned in there, in the interviews, post-race, you said along the lines of, it's taken years to execute this, for all of, I guess, all the phases of the race to get to there. And I was quite interested. Obviously, I've seen you on the Ironman for many, many years, and that pathway onwards and upwards that you go in. But I'm interested to know your psychology around the time, not the time it's taken as in a negative, just that constant building and building for years, and will carry on for years. And just that, obviously, you've reached a pretty big step, I guess, for you at the moment. But just your thoughts around that and that comment particularly.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I guess is unique with me is that I started cycling from, I know we touch into the background further at points, but I started cycling at a very young age, at sort of 10 years old, and was inspired by the likes of Cav and Pete and Mark Christian and everyone else that was ahead of us, as well as my older brother Nathan. And I won the British National Championships at 12. And looking back, I kind of think that now, before all my mates in school had picked their GCSEs or anything like that, I felt like I had a career. I felt like I was going to be a pro cyclist. Like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And I was only 12 years old. And then I kind of lived through that and went all the way till I was 17, 18. And kind of the sport changed a little bit for me, and I was finding different obstacles harder. And my brother found it really hard as well, which is he was 2.5 years older than me, or is 2.5 years older than me. So he was two age groups ahead of me, and he found it hard. So I stopped cycling at 17 or 18. And one of the things that I noticed in that first year or two when I stopped cycling was a lot of the people that were so heavily invested, or the best guys from the start, from a young age, weren't the ones that were coming through. It was all the late bloomers. And I think the thing that I took with me into triathlon was that if I want to actually be one of the best in the world, I have to get to a certain position without being all in and without dedicating like everything to it, pushing as hard as I can. So within the first sort of 12 months of triathlon, I realized that if I want to actually make it to the top, it's going to take probably 10 years to get to that level. And I don't want to get 5 years in and be burnt out. So a lot of what I'd done was actually holding back. And yeah, I could have probably tolerated 30 hours of training a week, but if I'm going to improve off 18 or 20 hours of training, like, that's the best thing for me. And I kind of knew that from that experience in cycling, and from seeing so many of all my friends were cyclists and seeing so many drop out just because of how hard it is, I felt like I needed to get to the point I'm at now without actually being all in. So when I kind of talk about the race, it's taken years to get there. Maybe I could have got there 12 months earlier or 6 months earlier, but that might have took 3 years or 5 years off my whole career. And I think it was just that like experience of being a cyclist and seeing it through and seeing so many people quit. You actually realize like the number one reason people quit is that they quit. They decide to stop. And a lot of the time it's not because they can't do it or they've not proven themselves. There's so many talented guys out there. It's because sport is probably more of a mental game than physical. Because obviously, as I say, there's people who have some amazing seasons, so they prove that they can do it physically. But if your head's not in it, then you're not going to sustain it. So the thing with the racing and Samarkand in particular, and saying, it's taken me a long time. And one of the reasons Samarkand was kind of unique was that the prize money for winning that race was $15,000. So I guess in some sense that felt like a big step forward financially. And it was just that the work I put in 4 or 5 years ago was pretty much equal to the work I put in to win that race, but you couldn't do one without the other. Mm-hmm. And it now just felt like it was kind of coming into fruition, and it's patience that kind of got me to that point.
I guess it's quite interesting, I suppose, as well in the modern world, not to categorize all young people in the same boat, but everything, obviously, people want everything now, don't they? Now. So that, obviously, like you say, you had people around you, or you saw people who had that challenge of, let's say, all being all in. Was that something just listening to people, or something you observed, or coaches telling you this, or a bit of everything?
I think it was just observing it. I think it was just that there's so many talented people and they all quit when the head goes. They don't quit because they're no longer hitting the numbers in sessions. They're quitting because they won't go out the door. And that was kind of something that I just thought, if I'm going to do this, I need to be careful. And that I'm very lucky. I have a nice family, and I was in a privileged position to live at home, and I didn't have any pressure because like my mum and my dad both moved out at a young age and had to kind of make their own way. But I was lucky that at 18 I could still stay at home. So I thought I need to just run with this, and I believe, like, the first person to believe it obviously had to be me. I say it as if I've made it. I've still got a long way to go, but the first person who had to believe I can turn it into a career was me. And then obviously at the start, then a small group of people, your friends and family, will always support you, and then slowly year and year, more and more people. And then like this year, obviously it's really kind of, it's exponential, where you start to like race well, and people say, oh, I believe you can do it now. But I've ranked now 40th in the world, so it's obviously a little bit less of a like a stab in the dark to say I could do it now. Whereas when I'd never even done a triathlon, that was when it was the kind of the day ones, if that makes sense. So,
and obviously the family are supportive in that space, I guess. Was the conversation that frank when you were going, I don't want to focus on cycling anymore, or with them? And I don't mean frank, but as in, I want to go down this road, it's going to take me a while, where can you support me, or can you support me?
Yeah, so it was kind of around the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. So I was on the long list, and I was on the long list for road cycling, but I was 17 at the time. So my qualification was done like on the track. I can't remember the details of it, but basically I didn't make the team. And after the Birmingham Commonwealth Games and being more involved in the selection process, I realized I never had a chance of making the team. The long list and the short list are quite different.
Okay.
And my mum and dad and brother went away to Australia, and I was kind of like eyeing things up and deciding what I wanted to do. And then it was kind of from there, I took a step back, and they never pushed me into anything, but they'd always support me. So I don't even remember having the conversation. I think I just suggested I remember the first race I wanted to do was a duathlon. I think Becky Story's partner, Cam, had won the junior duathlon world championships, and I must have known him, or we must have rode together, and I thought that would be like something I'd be interested in. And I'd raced like running races over here, so I thought we could start with that. And then I was lucky enough that some friends in the Isle of Man swim squad invited me down to Douglas, and then made friends with Lee Holland, and kind of got on board with all of them, and really kind of got into the swimming. And we'd actually all went to the Commonwealth Youth Games together, but I was only sort of 16 at the time. I wasn't very social, so I think we all kept to ourselves, the cyclists, the runners, and the swimmers. So I never really spoke to them. But now there was a lot of people over here. What was great, and one of the reasons for my first few years of triathlon, even though I was new to it, I never had a coach, was because I had great swimmers, I had great cyclists, and I had great runners to learn off of. And at the time, I felt like any session would improve me. Mm-hmm. I could go and do a long run with a cross-country runner, or I could go and do a track session with a specialist. Either one, I'm pretty like new to it, so anything will improve me. And it was only over the years that then that kind of, it had to get more and more specific. So I just kind of embraced all that, and then that added to the enjoyment side of things. But I do remember the first sort of year of swapping to triathlon, I hardly touched the bike, partly because I needed to learn to swim and run, but I think mostly because I just wasn't enjoying it at the level I was at. I was on a good team, but the dynamics of being managed and having teammates that you didn't necessarily get on with, and staff on the team that weren't very friendly, and you look back and like, you're only 17 at the time, like you just want someone to say well done, which never really happened. It was always like, oh, you can do better than that. I mean, I don't think it helped the team I was on. My brother had been so successful at previously, so there was always a high standard for me. But as I say, everyone that I was racing against that was blooming, they came along late, so they timed it right. So when I swapped, I was like, I need to time this right. And that was one of the big things that I took into triathlon.
It's funny you mention about cycling, because as an observer, I obviously guess the standard now, like obviously some of the top guys like 23, 24, I've kind of assumed that they've been like, I'd say living like a pro since they were 12 or 13. But would you maybe say there are some of them, but it's more maybe that, or they just haven't been fully in, it's not all been life and death till they were 17 about cycling. Perhaps they had a variety of sports.
I'd say now that you probably do have to get into it at a young age. If you compare it to other sports, like swimming, you have to get in at a really young age. Gymnastics, you have to get in at a young age. I think cycling took a shift, and unfortunately, what I seen and witnessed first time was my brother, and my brother finished. I think he was 7th at the Junior World Championships in Richmond. Won the British Series, won the British Championships. I think he was 2nd at the Junior Tour of Flanders. He had like an incredible palmarès, and we were actually on the Xbox the other day, and he was bringing up the list of the guys in his finish of his race at Richmond, and there were some incredible names there. Mark Hershey, one of them was Pogacar DNF that day. So there were all these names, but he signed for GB on, I think it was about $4,500 a year, and was given accommodation in Manchester or Italy. But nowadays you go World Tour, and Nay was working locally with Doyle as a coach, and he then wanted to kind of go scientific with it or like change things, but you're navigating that all on your own. But now they take people in from 15, 16, they give them a team bike, and they make sure they join them and give them all the support they need and take them to that next level. So at the time I seen what he did and thought, I don't think I can do better than that. And what he earned from it, I just thought it wasn't worth it, or it wasn't what I would have liked to have done. Whereas maybe even if it was maybe 2 or 3 years later, I think Egan Bernal was one of the youngest guys to win the Tour de France. And then the likes of Pidcock and people like that were coming through, and they were getting signed on huge contracts from a young age. Like, one of the things that people say, it's not about the money, but when you earn $4,500 and
it is,
you get paid, like they used to like have a room, and that the bills were paid, so they had a room to dry their kit and just bang the heating on, and they lived a very basic lifestyle, eating pasta like students. But nowadays it's that support, and that like cycling as a sport is so advanced in terms of developing these young riders that I think it would work now. And maybe everything would have been different, because nothing will motivate you more than sort of $20,000 a month to go out the door and do a 4-hour ride. Whereas when you're getting pence for it, it's like a little bit harder. So yeah, I actually think that maybe it's different now, but at the time that's what I seen. And triathlon, I think, is in long course anyway, is for late developers. So I chose like a good sport, because the average age in Kona, because I had the conversation with my partner who's a pro as well, in the female category, she's 26, so I'm 25, she's 26, and she's got Epstein-Barr. We were just talking about that before we came on the pod. But the average age in Kona, which happened yesterday, was 34. I think it was 33 and a half. So we both just said, like, look, it's a long time. The peak of our sport, it's different, and we'll probably come on to it later, but I'm not in a rush to kind of go to Kona, because the sport requires years and years of foundational work, and why go sort of 5 years in when you can go 8 or 9 or 10 years in? Like, you're going to be better then. You need to kind of pick and choose right now.
Yeah, because sorry, that's what I was just going to ask on when we're talking that comparisons between the cycling world and let's say that triathlon. Then, when you made that decision, looked at where your situation was at that point, did you know much about the triathlon world? Did you know much about that? I know to go back to your earlier comments of having even just changing and having let's say a 10-year plan or a longevity plan straight away is remarkable, really, rather than just that instant gratification, should we say. But when you look at how the cycling world was then, is triathlon very similar? Has that changed since? It was more, if you've gone from one environment to this, I assume there was a bit of, it's got to be a bit different, and how that first year or so was in your development. I guess, was there a program? Was that you doing it yourself, or like kind of how did that transition happen there? And
yeah, so for people who aren't aware, in triathlon it's split into, let's call it, short and long course, and the biggest difference is that in short course you'll ride around in a group and you'll draft off each other, and one of the most important things for that is your swim, because that determines what group you start the bike in. And then in long course it'll be non-drafting, so you use time trial bikes and you ride individually, they say, but it's a kind of a gap of around 12 or 20 meters depending on the event. So initially I started triathlon and I was still young enough to be in like the British Youth Series. So I was I was 18, I think it was 17 to 19. So I went away and you do a performance assessment. This was my first kind of step into triathlon. You do a performance assessment weekend. So you do a swim, and then the day, because the sea's too cold in England in March, I think it was held, or April, they do the swim on the Saturday and you do the bike and run on the Sunday. So I did my swim, and there was a cutoff of 11:40. I still remember it. The cutoff was 11:40, 11 minutes 40 for 750. And I trained for months and months trying to get under this time. And I knew what pace it was per 100. And I got under, I went 11:28. So I made it in by 12 seconds and I beat one person. And the next day, I think I started 180th. I was there with my best mate, Mossy. He drove me over because we were in the UK. And I started 180th and I worked my way up to 35th. So I passed a lot of people, a lot of youngsters. And what this meant was I had made the top 40. And that from being in the top 40, I could now get into this series throughout the UK. So then my first event was actually in Leeds, one of the famous series of short course races. And Al and John were there to kind of race in the men's elite. And I was in the junior race. And I was ranked 35th out of 40, stand on the pontoon yard. And I said to my parents, look, like, I didn't swim anywhere near these guys on average. Like, I might have bike and run like up to them, but only at around the same level as kind of the front guys. And I said, don't expect much in the swim. And they're like, oh, it's only 400 meters, you'll be all right. I remember coming out the swim and they'd opened the crossing points because I'd lost so much time in the water. It was only 6 minutes long and I'd lost about a minute and a half. So I had to navigate my way through the traffic. And I worked all day over a super sprint distance and I caught like 3 or 4 guys to match my previous thing. I just thought, this isn't going to work. This is going to take a long time to kind of get this swim where I wanted to be. And then I kind of then ventured into long course, which was where everyone has heard of Ironman. Ironman as a brand rather than a distance. So there's other brands that do it, and the half Ironman, again, it's a distance. 70.3 will be the distance in miles. And so I did a 70.3 and things were going well and I was leading, and then I did kind of blow up on the run because it was a half marathon and I didn't have too much running mileage in the legs, but I definitely felt that the non-drafting was where I needed to go. And I guess I didn't necessarily have the full plan in my head when I started, but I also didn't put any pressure on my shoulders when I started. And it was within that first year and not being afraid to like experiment. It was quite unusual for someone who's 18 to go and do middle distance. You're very young, but my strengths on the bike may have been better for short course because I'd like to ride in a group. I was only 17. Up until 16, I'd been crit racing. So I'd love to ride in a group. I think I'd have the skills. I think I'd have the change in speed. I think I'd be able to navigate the groups. But the problem was, if you've not got the swim, you're just not even going to be in there. And at the end of the day, you can be as good as you want on a bike. You're not going to beat 30 guys who actually just roll through and take turns on the front.
So while you're doing that longer distance, obviously the swim's longer and in theory, quote, you're losing more time. Right, you can make up more time because you're not chasing a pack of 50, you're chasing just individual riders.
Yeah, exactly. So as a ratio, the swim to bike is less. And because it's non-draft and everyone is riding individually, then the opportunity to catch up is much greater. And obviously it's quite nice. In them races, it's nice because you come out of the water quite far back and then you always have 50 or 60 guys to just work your way past one by one rather than seeing a group up ahead. So I changed to long course and then kind of from there felt like that was my path that I wanted to take.
I'd imagine you'd have that just from cycling. I appreciate you saying about crits and things on the Ironman, but naturally younger riders on the Ironman, they're out with the quote older fellas doing endurance stuff as well, so there's probably an engine in there already, isn't there?
Yeah, we've always been lucky enough to have great series. It's only from spending some time in the UK that you realise there's not a Wednesday 10 every week, or there's not different mountain time trial around the TT course or 25-mile time trial. I know that nowadays it's slowed down a little bit I guess there's a lot of pressure on volunteers and organisers and road closures and safety and stuff like that. So they still put on a great series with a mix of everything. But back 5 or 6 years ago, we had so much opportunity, or growing up, which would be from the age of 10, which was 2010 for me. So growing up, there was just a whole array of all types of cycling. So you were a bit of a jack of all trades, and it was shown when Dot's Army kind of went over and did the GHS national time trial. We'd always get people on the podium, and it's just because we were lucky enough to have the opportunity when you didn't even realise you were.
Yeah, Dot's Army. One of the words you mentioned earlier on was scientific. So observing you online, the videos you do, first I want to talk about personal brand in a minute, but starting from the scientific side, is that something that so the example we were chatting to, and appreciate Regan, we chatted about him just before we came on air, who does high jump, long jump, and he was saying, I appreciate he's only 17, 18. he's not really into data and information. Is that something that isn't? Because observing you on social, you talk about tires, watts, etc. Obviously, it's very important now. You're at the pointy end of sport, but have you always been in that, let's call it nerd space?
Yeah, definitely. I think like in that side of things, I guess there's two sides to science and data and stuff. And in one, for me, one of the biggest things is like getting to a start line and being slower before you've even started. Like, I hate that feeling.
What do you mean by that?
So if you've not got the fastest tires or you've not got the fastest kit, regardless of your performance on the day, you're at a disadvantage. And that is always it just annoys me because it's not a level playing field, and you can turn that on its head and you can put yourself at an advantage. So like optimizing kit and optimizing setup and making sure everything like that is right. And like an example of that would be this year, I went to a race and I forgot my tri-suit, and it sounds silly, but I packed my bag in an order of swim, bike, run, casual, and in none of that is a tri-suit because it covers all three. And I normally take two with me as well. And it was a race in Slovakia, and it was a championship race, and there was about 10 meters of elevation over 90k, and I just spent a day on the phone trying to organize getting my own suit out there because I'd done one single test in a wind tunnel. I was testing for a company that sponsor me, and we were testing their bottle mount, so it wasn't really to do with me. And they got me a slot for one test, and I tested two suits against each other, and the difference was 9 watts. And I just did not want to start at a 9-watt disadvantage because I knew that compared to a standard suit, that's what it was. And in my head, it wouldn't affect me. Like, I'd still push as hard as I could, but I just think like, why have I even bothered to start? Like 9 watts isn't going to be nearly a minute, which might be several positions. And it turns out like the way the race worked, that would have been thousands of pounds. So I managed to find someone that was coming out from England because with our races compared to cycling, which is different in triathlon, our races are advertised to try and get age group athletes in. So people that compete in amateur, and they hold them in nice places, nice venues. They try and sell locations. They try and sell entry fees into the race. And what that means is we have a pro race, and then behind us or the next day or alongside is an age group race. So a lot of the time it's very popular in England, long course triathlon. So you can usually find someone who's going to fly out, and because they're working a job, like someone to fly out on a Friday evening for a Sunday race isn't unusual. Whereas as a professional, we try and get out there maybe like Tuesday or Wednesday just to allow a little bit more time.
A wetsuit delivered to someone to then.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So you've got that day or two if you forgot something. So
thanking them for your 9 watts.
Yeah, I had to make my brother take the morning out of work to walk to a post office on Sunday. Yeah.
So obviously then, and is that, where's that from? Is that just something you've always had so I think I appreciate I'm in a different space, but I just want to ride the bike. But is that something that's always been on your mind of like maximizing those, let's call it, other gains outside of your own fitness?
Yeah, I guess so. I think I look back at pictures, and my mum and dad have kept newspaper clippings from the year. That's another great thing over here, is that you can be in the newspaper. You know, it doesn't happen in different parts of the world, and even England. And I was looking back at a picture from 2015 or something. I had the high calf sleeves with the strips on for aerodynamics when I was like 15. And I just think, I remember just reading something Dowsett had posted about it and just being like, this is a way, because obviously like everyone can go out and do a hard session, and everyone does do that, and you know that you're against are training. So if you feel like you found something that someone's not doing, then it's always like, oh, that's good. And I guess once you do that, and then I was doing well in them time trials, and I was actually looking back, I was on a great bike, and a bike that has now kind of lasted the course of time to still be proven as a fast bike. It was a Scott Plasma, and I had my aero set up in a reasonable position, and I was doing well, and doing well is a good motivation for anything, isn't it? So I guess them habits that I picked up then just kind of drove into me, and then it just was like about applying that to everything in triathlon. There's 3 times as many different areas to kind of apply that thought process to, and it definitely adds up when you individually. It might only make a few seconds, but like you add, like the more things you can add up, the more difference you can make.
Do you get swamped by? So like we speak to ex athletes, whatever level, whether they're just competing locally, and perhaps they've jacked in their sport, and obviously we touched on it earlier, and there's often a theme of like identity, and the person's identity is that sport. It's not necessarily a vibe I get from you because of what you were saying earlier about the sort of longevity and not, I guess, burnout. You need other things going on. But I guess, again, with 3 sports, trying to find those marginal improvements, constantly training, etc. Do you think, personally, if you reflect on yourself, you've got that balance right?
Yeah, definitely.
Will's not a triathlete. It's Will Draper.
Yeah.
By coincidence, happened to be a triathlete.
Yeah, I think even this year more than ever, and I say this year more than ever because this year I've earned what my friends would just call like a salary, like the salary of a normal job. And the thing with any professional athlete, they'll go 0, 0, 0, a couple grand, 50 grand, 250 grand if they do it right, because money in sport is exponential if you have breakthrough success, because suddenly everyone wants to sponsor you. Everything that you did pay for is now given to you and you get paid to use it. So it's kind of like one of them things where having earned more money from it, you realize it's not everything and that it is just something that you choose to do.
Just a job.
It's just a job at the end of the day. And I'm fortunate enough that I do enjoy it. But if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't have to do it because it's just a way of earning money. And
Right.
it's a way of filling your day with something that you enjoy. So for me, like, it works. And I understand there's hard times and there's obviously a lot of times I don't want to do it. But on the whole, like, it's what I do want to do. And I've chose this kind of path. And like at the start, early in my years, now I'm kind of more settled. But I tried my best listening to other athletes and different people. I try my best not to miss out on things, like even just a night out with your friends. Like when I was my first or second year, I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this for a long time. And at some point I will tighten up on my professionalism, but I'll go out and have a night out with my mates. And I'm so glad that I did that now, because I guess at the time, nightlife in general is a second, completely separate thing, but nightlife seems to be dying off. And the people at school that probably would have said it was weird that I wore Lycra are now the ones that are on social media saying they're going to do their first 70.3 and they do it about 2 hours slower. And then they message me and say, oh, you're so cool that you do it 2 hours faster, which I do think is ironic. It's great to see. Like, I really appreciate the sport growing. And someone asked me, or it's been asked to me multiple times, whether I get annoyed that sole influencers. So if you say an athlete, a lot of athletes have to combine kind of influencing or content creation with performance, like I try and do. But sole influencers get brand deals ahead of professional athletes. But it doesn't bother me because they bring so many people into the sport. Not many people will look at me. I know I inspire, or I hope that I inspire and get messages, a certain demographic, but it's not necessarily the newcomers. It's not the beginners. It's like someone that was overweight or someone that was going out partying. If they swap things around and they start taking up triathlon, like, they're the guys that reach a much larger audience than me being like, oh, I use my carbon shoes and I pick them certain model because they tested 30 seconds faster over a half marathon. Like, that's not going to appeal to everyone, and I understand that. And if the sport grows, then at the end of the day, brands will expand into that space. And I think it's worked. I think that, like, as on a whole, especially long course, is in a really good place. And I think it's because long course is a lot more accessible for amateurs than short course. Short course is more around the Olympics and professional, and it's almost like, the way I describe it is, if anyone knows kind of track cycling and like road cycling, like track cycling, it's accessible as an amateur, but it's not extremely accessible. Like, there's not as many events that are held around the world that people go to, whereas brands like Ironman and stuff like that have expanded long course and made it very like admirable for people to do, and people want to be known as someone that's done one, and it's just created more money, and then that's luckily like expanded up into professionals.
So on that social and brand side for yourself, is that something, I suppose, one, you enjoy doing? Do you feel that I assume maybe you have some obligations under your sponsors? I don't know. It'd be great if you could talk about that. And do you enjoy it? And is it something you, like, if you didn't have to do it, would you even bother, I guess?
It's a mixture, really. It's hard because, like, sometimes you just go a long time without doing anything and without keeping it up, and then you make some content. And the annoying thing is with content creation, so if we're talking about making an Instagram video or Facebook post or anything like that, it's, in my experience, what you put in compared to what you get out isn't very linear, which is one of the most demoralizing things about it. Because you can have like a poorly made video and it might actually do really well, and then you can have a well-made video and it might not do so well. One of the things in part that I personally believe leads to that is that ads are well-produced videos, and that like content from an amateur is poorly produced. So sometimes the poorly produced people naturally like flick past ads because ads come up 1 in every 6 kind of videos. But aside from that, it's something that I kind of, sometimes I post and it'll do well and I think, oh, I enjoy this. I enjoy posting. I get messages and people saying like, oh, that's really helpful. You've really like sometimes I'll do things that save you money, or sometimes I'll do things like advice about racing, or advice. One of the big ones for me was, even though I'm not a great swimmer, where I've came from comparatively to who I race against, where I've came from is relatable for a lot of people, and putting out swim advice or swim kind of content works well. And then other times you kind of put a lot of effort in and it doesn't do that well, and then you think, why did I bother? So it's it's a love-hate relationship. But one of the things that is a guarantee is that when you don't put out content, no brands message you. Yeah, right. Whereas even if you're not putting out what you deem as good content, there's enough out there and there's people following you. Like I kind of, this year, I've actually said slowed down compared to previous years because I've made good money from my races. Like not good money, but enough money to get by. Whereas in the past, I was kind of using the income from brand deals. It would only be a couple £100 here and there. But that goes a long way when you live a very basic lifestyle of just training, eating and sleeping. And then I kind of felt like that helped motivate me to do it. But now, even like we're towards the end of the year, I've signed in with an agent who will manage things, and then we have like sponsors that they will go through your page. So it's important to kind of be pushing some good stuff. But it's hard because in my head as well, I guess everyone's like this. Everyone that you see or everyone that inspires you is above you, and the people that you inspire are below you. So when I think about posting content, I think like, oh, that's not that like impressive, or that's not that cool, because I know guys that are better than me that post, they're professional photographers or professional cameramen, or they've had better results. So you shy away from posting it. But then when you actually think about the people that like it and consume your content, yeah, them guys might see it, but it's not very often that someone better than you will kind of call you out or have anything negative to say. It's always the people that are kind of not doing as well as you might be doing. So it's easy to kind of overthink that side of things and being like, oh, I don't want to post about my kind of secrets to running this fast if I know that other guys can run faster. But that's just a natural kind of
I get it.
Thing that you fall back to, that you think that because other people are doing better, you don't want to post yourself. But it is important, and
you're at the
it pays off.
Top of that.
Yeah, I'm going closer to the top.
Yeah.
So,
in the scheme of all,
in the grand scheme of things, And one of the things that I always thought when I was growing through the sport was that you often do only have access to the guys at the top level, and they're not the most relatable people. It's the people 1 level above you or 2 levels above you. And so I did like to consume that kind of content. So like I would go and try and find videos on how to swim, and if someone who's swam, if Phelps has been in the pool since he's like a kid, and he trains like so much, and all the other triathletes who are good swimmers, they've done it for so long. I was like, they don't understand the struggles that like someone who's started at sort of 18 or 19 might face, and someone that's come from, they've actually gone to a pool and they've done X times. Like them guys won't remember ever doing them times because they were probably 8 or 7 years old. So to work off them sort of paces and build from that up to where you are now is completely unrelatable. And then the guys that aren't at the top are a little bit shy to post their content because they feel like they're not at the top. So I think like that's one of the things that I've discovered. I mean, even sitting here now talking about it, it makes me think I should probably post more. But again, something that I find hard, like today, I did a great bike session and it was probably quite good. It could have made for good content because it was impressive. Like I'm not one that does many impressive sessions. I'd say I actually do a lot of mediocre training. I've just done it very consistently for a lot of years. But because we're towards the end of our season, I've been pushing my sessions. But like I'm like pushing, I'm like needing to kind of stop, and like I'm sweating. And I'm like really in a bad way towards the back end of a real hard bike session. It's like the last thing I want to think about is recording it or getting it. Like maybe if I had paid someone to come and film me, but then at the end of the day, I switch up where I'm going to go on my rides based off So I had like certain efforts, and then I think, oh, we'll go there, and then I do it once, and I think I've ran out of road there. I started to do an effort on a downhill, so I changed the route. And even if you're working with a professional videographer who's coming out the back of a car, you still have to communicate with them. So it's very difficult to balance. Like an influencer isn't under pressure to perform, and their pressure is in making consistent good content. So as an athlete and being competitive, you think, oh, I want to make content to the standard of these guys. But at the end of the day, that's very difficult unless you're almost going to dedicate your days to kind of producing content, which is what I've spoke to some well-followed people, and that's what they do. They'll go out the same way I'll dedicate myself to an intense endurance session. They'll dedicate themselves to video and themselves, which is, and then that's why it comes across extremely well, natural, balanced in their video, but you don't realize how many times they're stopping and starting and different people that they've got involved in. Even just like a 1 second drone shot could take half an hour to get right. So it's it's a balancing act, but it's unfortunately for the previous generation, it's almost something they have to catch up on. So I say that in terms of like growing into the sport, you know that you have to do that side of things realistically to get brand deals, because you are competing against people that are very good at creating content and are very appealing to a target audience of consumers. Like selling a super shoe is not necessarily as... So if I say, oh, I want to get sponsored by Nike because I can run fast in their shoes. Like Nike have lots of people who can run fast in their shoes, and that doesn't necessarily appeal to lots of people on the internet. Whereas if someone who's very new to the sport didn't know what shoe to pick, Nike sent them, and then they go on their profile and they've got a good following, and they say, I didn't know what shoe to pick, but I picked this £100 pair of Nike shoes, and they are great and comfortable. They have so many more people that can relate to that than for me saying to run a 66 half marathon, I use this shoe. I've got a very small audience. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and the sport has changed. And like when I started, I bought the yellow Mavic triathlon shoes because I searched for a picture of the Brownlees, and I just bought what shoes they had on. And that would be the equivalent of buying a magazine in a shop and seeing, or you might see a magazine and what I guess when I was growing up it was Froome or Contador and Schleck. I bought the Bell helmet that Andy Schleck had because I seen it on TV. Like that was how we consumed product. But now it's changed, and for the older generation in the sport, it's changed while they've been in it. And I reckon that they've had probably quite difficult conversations with sponsors that have said results aren't enough anymore. We need you to produce content and reach a larger audience on socials.
And you mentioned Brown. Sorry, go on.
Quickly there. Keeping on the subject of socials and that, what's your kind of relationship with it in the sense of responding to things? There's always going to be, let's say you take the bad with the good. Are you someone that when you post out in those instances after a race or training session, whatever it may be, are you notifications on, looking at every kind of comment or things of that, or even just social in general, or media and things like that? Do you take attention to all that kind of noise, shall we say, and do you internalize that?
I think one of the biggest measures of success and online presence is how many haters you've got, and it's not to be controversial or not. If you're controversial, obviously you spike that, but I actually felt like in the past there wasn't enough people like commenting and stuff. It just shows you don't have that much reach, whereas if you put out video and you get loads of people engaging with it, and engagement will be completely mixed between good and bad, and people say some stuff that's obviously not very nice and on no merit really because they don't understand you. But to be honest, as people were doing that, it actually just made me feel like my content was reaching like larger audiences, because if you get 1,000 people view a post, you might get one nice or a few nice comments and then one hateful comment. But if you get 10,000 or 100,000 or 1 million, that then as a ratio it goes up. So, and I've been very lucky. I don't know why. It's just by chance that I don't really care that much, and it's almost in my younger years, I'd just say to someone else, I just don't care. And as I've gotten older, I realized that it's not as simple as that. I'm just lucky to not care and just to kind of do my own thing. And I guess even it's kind of knowing that they don't understand what you're doing. And if they're hating on someone that's trying hard to make it, it's like, that's more a reflection of them. Yeah. And I understand, like,
it's easy for you to say that. And obviously it's great. Your brain works that way, but obviously a lot of people don't, though they? It's that struggle of just, it's more a reflection of their position or what their brain's telling them than. But to be able to push it off is difficult because no one likes criticism, do they?
No, exactly. So, but if I kind of don't perform in a race or something goes wrong, like I usually can address it myself.
Yeah.
And I know what I've done wrong and what I've done right and how I've prepared for it and things like that. And sometimes like criticism can be quite constructive at times. You can listen to what they say and you can take it and spin it in a positive. And like I just mentioned, like, it's easy for me to sit and say or at one point I did just sit and say to people, just don't listen. I understand it's not the same, but I guess I'm not that good for advice for how to deal with it because I'm just fortunate that that's just how I kind of, wired. And I can compartmentalize that kind of side of things into a different part, and it's never really overwhelmed me, and it's never really became an issue. It could have, like anything, it could become an issue, but I'm just lucky that it doesn't.
You mentioned there about an agent, so I assume that's the first time you've had an agent. I would say what's prompted it? Clearly, having a good year's prompted that. But is that like, are they looking at, obviously, I assume you sponsor sports type thing and getting into races? What's their role?
So it'll be my first time having an agent. I actually met this guy, Ryan, at a race. He manages two other British athletes who I know. He manages Ailish McColgan, the distance runner. So he has some great athletes on his roster. And he works with another fellow, Lewis. And he approached me and my partner, who I mentioned earlier, as a professional as well, and kind of said, we'd like to manage you. The way that it works is that they will get 20% equity, or 20% of the money of your deals. But it's kind of, right now, it's a no-brainer because I've not got contracts for next year. None of my contracts this year were into next year. That's not to say that I can't carry them on. They just weren't wrote that they would be on. So up until the point right now, they've actually done a lot of work for nothing because they take a percentage. And it's easy to think, well, you're only getting 80%, you're missing out on money. But these people, they put in a lot of work. They have a lot of contacts.
They might get you 100%
and
more than you might get.
And it's very difficult to negotiate your own value because you know that whatever figure you throw out that you want to get paid, the companies are always going to fight back or they're always going to kind of negotiate with you. And you don't know if that's a legitimate negotiation or if they're laughing behind the emails because you've just completely undervalued yourself. So it's really nice to have someone kind of do that for you. And they obviously wouldn't do it if they didn't think they were going to make some reasonable money. So I'll make 80% more than they do. And if they think it's worth it, then I'm like, that's quite good. But this particular agency, the reason I chose them was actually because at the time, Chloe, my partner, was going through a hard time, and the way they kind of navigated that, they seemed a lot more invested in us as athletes rather than like as ways of making money.
Oh, interesting.
Which is good. So that kind of worked well. And it's obviously difficult. I've signed small deals. I've done stuff myself in the past, and everything's a conversation that feels good until it's signed or not signed. So when you ask them, right now at this time of year when they're sorting deals, you say, how's it going on? And they say, well, we're in a lot of good conversations. You don't actually know what that means. And neither do they, in fairness to them. So you just have to kind of wait and hope that it pays itself. But right now, I'm back on the island. I'm back with my parents. I'm saving, but I've not got responsibilities. So really, again, like the pressure's off, which is a very fortunate position to be in because there's other people at 25 that have huge amounts of pressure and have to make money. So I've not got that pressure, and hopefully they bring a lot of good things to me. But one of the key things I've kind of said to them is that I want performance over like finance, really, because of the position I am in, unfortunately. And I do think that I can go a lot further than the successful year I've had, but I can't do that if I start taking $5,000 here or kind of $10,000 here just to ride a slower set of wheels or a slower slower kit. Because if we use Samarkand, for example, which we spoke about at the start, first place was 15,000 US, second place was 9,000, and third place was 6,000. So you drop 2 places, then you lose. You lose $9,000. So if a brand offers you a couple grand, you got to be careful.
So going back to there, when you're talking about with the suits there, that 9 watt loss, then I assume then you've had the research or discussions with them to be like, these are my wish list of the guys because I know what products they have. So go speak to them and try and get what you can.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, exactly that. The triathlon's a small space as well, so they've spoke to. There's not masses and masses of companies, and I guess like at this time of year they focus on triathlon brands, and then beyond, and other times of years they can focus on other brands. Like I think they work with like companies that do sun cream and stuff like that because like we all use it, like we all use sport specific sun cream. So then that's like an avenue to explore, but that brand won't work off of an annual sponsorship the same way like a bike company will, because that's just not in the industry. It's not specific to our season. So yeah, and then in terms of racing, they can negotiate a lot of the time. They don't have to. One of the big ones they'd negotiate is a race called Challenge Roth, but fortunately, not fortunately, because they would take a cut of race bonus, like a starting money. Roth is one of the races that pays out a start money. It's one of the races me and my partner want to do next year, but ever since I started, I raced Challenge over Ironman, because the reason for that was that at the start, Ironman, you still had to pay your entry fee as a pro, and Challenge, I didn't. And I kind of always went into Challenge, and I've got a really close relationship now with Challenge, and I'll go to races, and the CEO and stuff will invite us down for dinner, and it's not necessarily performance based. I think it's just that I've been there for years and years and years, and we've got to know each other and the different members of the team. And Belinda, who's the athlete kind of manager, we get on so well, and she says that me and Chloe remind her of her and her partner, so I guess that might help. But that means we probably will just try and negotiate deals in Roth ourselves. But our agent, like Ryan, he's like completely happy with that. He understands the position in this contract. He sent through the contract. One of the things that you can do now, if you ever get a contract as an athlete, you can just run it through ChatGPT. You don't even have to read it, because at the end of the day, I can't consume a 12-page or a 14-page contract and understand it. I run it through ChatGPT and I get it to compare it. And it told me 2 points that were maybe not industry standard. I think one of them was that from the moment the contract's signed, they get 20%, which was difficult for us because we don't get very much at the minute. But again, this is like a generic contract they've sent. They've not wrote it just for us. And when they sign with big athletes, that makes sense, because they kind of will join into a team and they kind of do want money before they put in all this groundwork. And then the second thing was, I think it was something like, say they signed you with Canyon and then you left them but stayed with Canyon, they'd continue to get the percentage. But I said, like, in the long run, I don't like the sound of that, because it would force you to maybe leave a brand that you get on well with, because you don't want to continue to pay this 20% rather. And they just like instantly were like, no problems, we're taking both out. So it worked out absolutely perfect. And then ChatGPT was like, it's a great deal, go for it. Right. So yeah, that was my kind of first thing I used for advice. But yeah, you can tell. I mean, it's difficult because they're all car salesmen in the industry, aren't they? They're good, sweet talkers, but you can kind of see through. And we knew other athletes that worked with them, so it was promising. And I already feel the weight off my shoulders, because this time last year I was reaching out to sponsors and not getting a reply.
You come back from a 4-hour training session, you type in emails, it's just not on your desk anymore, is it?
No, exactly. So it's good, and hopefully it will kind of serve dividends.
Yeah. So just for those that don't know, I was researching today because I didn't know the differences. So, and what it was talking about, the challenge space is that's I presume it's a company ultimately. They're very athlete focused, perhaps less so than Ironman. No disrespect to Ironman, but I believe that's what Chat told me. So I'm blame Chat for that. And but they're the same distance that, quite like you said earlier, Ironman's just a brand, but they're the same event distances, but they're more athlete focused. Would that be a fair assessment, do you think?
Yeah, I think especially in the past. I mean, Ironman have had a new CEO take over. Ironman work off of a board with shareholders, so there's a big drive on making profit, and it's an American company, and I've not done loads of research into it, so I don't really know too much about it. But I don't look at Ironman and think, I don't want to go to them races. But it's more like Challenge would be like, so I'm racing in Sardinia in 2 weeks. They put us up in a 5-star hotel, and my mum and dad looked at coming out. It was €500 a night, and they pick us up from the airport. And when you get picked up from the airport, it will probably be the race organizer themselves, and the person who shakes your hand over the finish line is the CEO or whatever. It's like, it's a smaller company, but it's kind of they call themselves Challenge Family, and it just does feel that way. And I mean, I've had success this year, and I've podiumed at a lot of the challenge races I've done. So I feel like at some point I'll need to progress past them, but I'll always go back to their big ones. And what they pride themselves on, taking athletes from the start of their pro career into the high kind of level of professional. And I really think that that's something they are very good at. And it's a handful of people, I could probably name them on one hand, who's involved. And that's why I've always kind of tried to support them. And as an organization, it's very well organized. They're like Ironman's very well organized. The occasional Ironman event doesn't go very well. Weymouth, they cancelled the swim this year. They said it was because of conditions in the water, but on the day it was good conditions. But these brands are almost like an umbrella, and under them they have individual race organizers. So it's not, that could have easily been a challenge branded event. It could have been under the challenge umbrella, and then everyone would be like, I don't like challenge, I'm going to do a different event. But these are just, the logistics are crazy. I wouldn't like to do it myself. So they both do like a great job of that. But as I say, one of the biggest things at the start of my career was that it was $250 to enter an Ironman race, so it was free to enter a challenge race. So when you're only wanting to spend, you get like the cheapest flights, and you're staying somewhere that's €30 a night, you almost double the cost of your trip going on an Ironman one. So I just happened to do challenge, and from there kind of always stayed in that.
You'll feel posh in that $250 a night hotel.
And in this next one, this next one should feel nice. So it's different.
Raiding a mini fridge.
Yeah, even my mum and dad, they come 1 or 2 trips a year, and the last one we went to when we was in Almere, they were like, oh, have you booked us a transfer? I was like, oh, they pick us up now. I was like, I'm becoming the big dog here. So it's nice. But
you're in an Uber though, sorry.
Yeah. So it's nice that it's,
the work's paying off.
You get slightly more rewarded because they want you to come to their races, and it's because they want high performance. They want to have fast courses and fast time set. They want a competitive pro field, so they will offer you different incentives. And I guess Ironman have always been not lucky, but they built a brand that was very renowned, and people want to go there, and they don't need to force anyone to go there. So they've not had to kind of work their way up. So I guess that's what I admire about Challenge.
And Challenge Eurocentric, or is it like, are they?
They do branch out, so they branch out. As far as I'm aware, it was so the race that I did, the European Champs, Almere, was the second oldest triathlon in the world behind Kona. And then Roth, the guy who organised Roth, used to organise like all the Challenge races, and then he maybe sold it and solely focused on Roth because Challenge Roth grew so big. So Challenge Roth is almost separately organised. It's organised by a guy called Felix and his family, and it's easy to see it's a year-round project to organise that one day. So there's no way that someone else could do it.
How come that is? Because when I know Challenge, I know Challenge Roth as well, and what that seems to just be such a massive event. How did that become Challenge Roth in that sense? Like, why is that the big one? Have you raced it before?
No, I've not raced it. I hope to race it next year, but I guess I've not looked into the history of Roth. But I know that triathlon's massive in Germany. I know that a lot of the German athletes have incredible sponsorship because the companies are so invested into that side of things, and it all comes from the grassroots, I guess, of the sport. And if there's big events and all these people that are corporate that want to go and do these events, and they're well run and they're iconic, I guess like atmosphere and stuff like that really carries a race. So if it's been in an area that's really enjoyed hosting the race for a long time, people go year and year. And one of the things that Belinda, the athlete manager, said to me about Roth is that Felix is very good for he's not trying to make more money. He's always trying to put the money back in to make the event better. Right. And I guess that's probably the simple reason that it's grown and became such a iconic event. And it's a snowball, isn't it? Like once it starts and everyone wants to go in it, same as different events like Norseman and stuff like that. There's a lot of extreme triathlons held, but it's just when something's got a name to it, then everyone wants to go on it. And like I watched a video of Roth, it just sold out in like seconds. It was literally like the screen, it was just flashing up numbers. It went up like a couple hundred at a time and then just maxed out. So
it's like the sick work down south.
Yeah, I know. So
well, sorry, just quick before we move on then. When we talk about organisers and things, you've got the Challenge, you've got the Ironman. Who are like the other players then where you say maybe you might do focus elsewhere apart from those two big names? Who else is on like the circuit that would be on your radar?
So for kind of like age group, they don't hold pro events as Outlaw in the UK, which is a good option, like to do UK events. But for us as athletes and competing kind of Europe and beyond, the only other major player would be the T100, which is the new the new kid on the block, new distance 100 kilometers rather than 113, which is a half Ironman, so it's slightly shorter than a half Ironman. They pay really well. I don't know the ins and outs of the company. I don't know. I know that a lot of the athletes from the money is incredibly high, and the athletes are contracted. The athletes win big bonuses, but as far as I'm aware, a lot of the athletes from last year only got paid out late this year, and it came like a week after an investment round was announced. So I don't know if there's loads of cash flow, but it's a very new company, so it might have to operate that way. So I hope it lasts, but they've had some bad luck this year, which I do feel for them. Like, they were holding an event in Valencia, they had all the branding done. Even they give the pro athletes the hotel. There's only 20 men and 20 women, and then a whole team. But they said they lost about 60 grand on that event, just the hotel alone that they booked for the athletes, because Valencia, they had problems with Valencia Council, whatever reason. A few weeks out from the race, it got canned. So some things like that can really be like probably potentially detrimental to companies. But they seem to have a lot of age group. I did the one in London. That's hugely well received by the locals. So I kind of hope that it works, because what the introduction of T100 and Ironman had in the Pro Series has done is it's made tiers to professional racing, which we didn't have. So like when I was kind of third year pro, I did smaller challenge races. And we had like Ali Brownlee there, Rico Bogan, who was the world champ the year I did it, 2023. We had basically all these guys that were like top in the world coming to do this, like very, like your sixth place was 500 euros, you know, like this is what we regard as like a small race, because that pays for your trip, doesn't it? And there was like 60 people on the start line. So, and I think Alistair was like third that day or something. So that's what happened back in the day. But now, similar to cycling and other sports, we've got like tiers that you can kind of be pro and then you can start. And I would say that Challenge are the first tier, and they have races that like ROF and like different races like Samarkand, when they put on a big prize fund and they kind of elevate that. A lot of the Ironman races are also first tier, but then the second tier it's mixed, and then T100 is in theory the premier tier, because the prize money, I think it's like 8 million across the year, or something really high. And or it might be 2 million. I'm not sure. It's a lot of money.
Numbers. Yeah.
It's a lot of money though, and I know that the winner of the series is like 250,000. And they offer a lot of kind of additional services with that. But again, they're having to do what Challenge have done, which is find a way to draw in the top athletes, because Ironman holds such a nostalgic place.
You've had obviously a number of outstanding results in the last couple of months. I think it's when you won the European Champs, when you ran past a load of people right at the end there. How many times did you watch that video?
We watched it. Yeah, I have actually watched it a few times. A lot of the stuff that happens in the video I don't realise happened at the time. A lot of people told me they watched it a lot of times, and I probably watched it secondhand a lot more than I watched it myself. But it was a crazy finish. Yeah, I'll let you finish what you were going to say.
Well, I was going to just ask about that event. I appreciate you probably talked about it for 2 hours, but yeah, talk a bit about that event and obviously the result.
Yeah, so it was my first full distance, so double a half, and I've done I think I've done around 10 halves. Yeah, double the half to make a full. So it's 140.6 miles. It's it's broken
full Ironman, you mean?
Full Ironman. So this is where we were saying at the start that Ironman's a brand. So this wasn't Ironman branded.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say I'm not an Ironman, but I've done an Ironman distance event, which does confuse people.
I can still get to you after if that helps.
Yeah. So 3.8 kilometer. I know I keep switching between miles and kilometers, but 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike, and then a full marathon, which is, I guess people can understand the full marathon at the end. So I actually did this one. It was my girlfriend's favorite event last year, and I said, like, look, I'll just do it because you're doing it. And it's run by Challenge, so it's the European Championships run by Europe Triathlon, which is like World Triathlon, the same as the UCI. And it was held the same weekend as the Ironman World Championship. So I was like, well, that's an ideal weekend, because I don't try and seek out the hardest races because I'm not the best in the world. So I'll let them guys do that. I'll seek out the ones that held the same weekend. So it was a fast performance, and I'm incredibly happy. But I mean, like, there would be plenty of guys who were at the Ironman World Champs that could come across and beat me that are European.
Wouldn't undersell it, Will.
Yeah, I try to. Yeah, I guess there's only a handful in the world. So I decided to go and do this event. My girlfriend got injured going into it, so she couldn't race, which was unfortunate and sad. But I thought if it was Ironman, I wouldn't have actually done it, but I'd already promised the challenge people that I knew that I'd do it. And I guess I wanted to, I didn't necessarily want to win it. Not that I didn't want to win it, but I wanted to go into it and see how I felt over this distance. And I feel like the mistake a lot of people make is they dedicate a huge chunk of their training and dedication and year to doing a full or doing their first full. And like, it's not necessarily going to go right the first time. Like, there is an element of luck when you're a beginner that you get things right, because obviously you have to kind of fail to understand what you did right or wrong. I used a lot of lessons and learned from other people to kind of help me, give me the best chance, but I still expected stuff to go wrong, which it did, but nothing catastrophic. And then anyway, I went in the race and did the swim and the bike, and I felt good. And one of the things we talked about earlier was the advantages. And when you race the European champs, you have to race in your country's kit. Our country's kit is equal to the kit that I use anyway, the Hoob stuff. And a lot of the other countries, it's actually fairly poorly. It's a quite bad kit. It's not very aero. And I actually thought I've probably got about 10, 15 watts on a lot of these guys, because they're forced into these kits from these brands that the country, the people who organize it, then they just get whatever they can, whatever company will send them in for free. So I thought, oh, that's an advantage. If I race for GB, I race in a faster suit than a lot of people. Whereas if I race in my trade kit, they all have their like choice of best kit. So that was one of the things I thought would help. And it did in the end, because I felt like my power wasn't great, but my speed on the bike was pretty good. So I did bike, faded a bit at the end. I'd used my windsock, which is like a thing that can analyze the wind on the day. And I knew that the bike's 180k, but I knew that at 164k, once you got to there, you turn right and you had this massive tailwind back in. So I thought, if I get to 164k, I can get off the bike. And I got off the bike, and then I was going to stop. And then I thought about my partner, Chloe, and I thought, well, I'm here. I don't have to stop. I want to stop, but I don't have to stop. Bearing in mind, at this point, I've never ran more than 30k. It was more thinking, I don't think I can do it, and I'm going to have to walk this. And also, what you got to think, for us, it's not a case of, can we do it? Like, I put the hours I do, even though they're specific for half Ironman, of course I can go and do a full within the cut-off time. It's over double what I did on the day. But it's more about, you think, if I push through this marathon, will it then ruin the rest of my season? Yeah. And I can perform at halves, and I could perform at half in 2 weeks' time if I don't run here. But I committed to starting, and luckily I came around and felt a bit better. And then I ran through, and I broke it up to kind of 7k at a time. And I guess once I got more than 10k in, and I had less than 30k to go, I felt like I've done this before, and I feel all right. And the pace that I was holding was good. And I was in third at this point, because I'd set myself up well with a good swim and bike. And even though I'd lost a bit at the back end of the bike, I was still in a decent position. And I knew the pace that I was running was a lot faster than the guy in first has ever ran. It was 12 minutes faster than his fastest time. So I was kind of like, I think I can pull him back. So he was the guy in first, and the guy in second was 2 minutes ahead off the bike. And then over the course of the first 30, 35k, I brought that down to a minute, but it sort of plateaued. And he was down as the race favourite. I hadn't actually raced him before. I did race him in a very, very hot race, 40 degrees, and he pulled out. So I was like, it's not a real representation. But anyway, this gap was kind of a minute, and with 3 or 4k to go, I just thought, everyone was telling me you're going to blow up at 30k. And everyone who didn't say that said, you'll blow up at 35k. But I didn't blow up at either. So once I got through both of them, I thought, you know what, I can actually like push on now. I'll give it a try. I just started running as hard as I could. I couldn't see this lad. I just started running as hard as I could. And then I'll kind of like tunnel vision, just focusing on just emptying the tank. And then as I got closer, it kind of dawned on me what I was potentially setting myself up for, like a sprint, which was the last thing you want to do, because I'm putting myself in that position of like things are going to get harder before they get easier. So I guess I kind of had to battle that. And even at one point, I did think about, well, I might just ease back and just not ever put myself in that position, because it's the thought of it seems so like overwhelming at the time. You're at the end of an 8 hour or 7.5 hour day, and the thought of it. And then I thought, you know what, like, let's just get up there and see. And I made it kind of closer and closer and closed them down. And there's a video, and the way that I've seen it this year, so because I am a weaker swimmer, I won't be on a camera unless I'm in first. It's not like cycling where they have multiple cameras. A lot of the time there's one camera and it will film the guy in first place. And like my partner's a very good swimmer, so she'll get the camera, and even if she doesn't hold first place, she'll still feature on the streams and people can watch her. Whereas for me, I'll come out the water like 20th or 30th and I'll have to work my way through and they'll never show it. So when I see these cameras on the races I've won, I always picture the people that are like my friends and family, my brother, my mum and dad, and my partner and her family who are watching home. I see them on the far side of that camera. Right. So then I thought, like, when I get onto this camera, they're all going to love it. So I ran up to it and I could see it. And then I kind of like bided my time. And I got there with a K to go at the end of this marathon. And then like the way that it felt to me was that I ran up to him hard. His pace didn't drop. I looked on Strava. His pace didn't drop. My pace really picked up. I was kind of running 3:20, 3:30 per K the last 5K. And yeah. And I kind of got up to him and it almost felt like a rest between intervals.
Oh, okay.
And I was quite confident that I had another kind of step to go. And I guess it's still new to me, this feeling of winning, or it's something that as a cyclist, you got quite frequently. Whereas throughout my whole career in triathlon, which must be 6 or 7 years now, I've had it, 2 or 3 times, or maybe 3 or 4. I've won some mountain bike stuff. And it's like, then chances they really like elevate you just feel like different, you just feel like you want to win and you want to be a winner. And kind of, I guess that came on and it was like, I'm going to kind of do this now and sprint past him. And
were you eyeing him up when you caught with him to see?
So I stayed behind him. Yeah, I stayed behind him. So there's a video you can see. So my mountain biker, first, second and third have a person on a mountain bike that kind of, I guess, is to guide them through, but also to make sure that people know they're coming and to show the people watching who's in first, second, and third. Yeah. It says third or second on the budget. My mountain bike was really waving me. He was trying to he was like, come on, like you can do it. I'm like, God, I'm trying as hard as I can. And then when I caught, it was in like a busy bit, and he actually got out the way and let me catch myself. And then after I'd ran behind him for a little bit, he then did the overtake, and it was at the point that he overtook the guy who was leading at the time that he turned around and seen me. And then I felt like if I was in his position and my position, I would much rather be in my position because I'm on like a positive and he's in his head, like his heart must have like dropped at that moment that he's seen me, because I'm sure the last thing he wanted to do as well was kind of do a sprint.
Do you get regular time checks? Like, as in that up until that point, is he knowing you're catching him? Or is it like every K or few K you might get something or feel? Because you said that, I remember watching it, it's that busy. It's not like you can just turn around and see something.
So for him, I think one of the things that just happened to work in my favor is that between the third to last and the second to last time in Matt's, I lost 4 seconds on him. So I went from 52 to 56. I don't know why. I think I just, like, you have like ups and downs and you go through corners faster and slower. You have a gel. And I don't know whether he was told that I'd lost a bit of time. But I mean, I looked at his pacing didn't drop. So as much as I could say, or he could say I wasn't aware, like he really emptied the tank into the finish. But I had a big visual. So he could have turned around and maybe seen the mountain bike, but he didn't. But I could see the motorbike. There's a big motorbike and there's someone stood on the back, and it was a full touring bike, and it was on a cycling path. So it was very obvious to me when I was catching it where he was. But again, like, the time when I caught him, I kind of timed it. And as I was catching him, a lot of people would be looking at him go past, cheering him, like, go on, clapping. And then they'd look left, see me, and then they'd look right and scream as loud as they could that I was coming at the point I was stood next to them. It was like so loud, and it happened multiple times because the race was held in the Netherlands and he was Dutch. So it was, it was quite a big finish. So, but it was, I look back at the video, and the video that Challenge posted kind of did 1 million views, and it really, I don't know, it just seemed, even my agent said he was talking to the woman who manages the athletes, and she said she'd seen it. And it's like, it's funny how like it didn't necessarily affect the position, could have been done in a very relaxed and unique manner. Like the girl who won was also British, and she had a phenomenal race. She finished 15 minutes ahead of second or something, and was just outside it was a slower day, and she was just outside the course record, and it was her first full. But because she didn't finish it the way I finished it, it got less publicity, so I almost felt bad for her. Because she dominated, but it was less exciting, and I kind of left it to the wire. And I guess, I mean, I never have to do that same scenario again, so I can enjoy that one.
I've just got one final question. Appreciating time's pressing on. Just if you had to again critique yourself in regard to your general mindset, you seem quite a strong character. Do you have? I don't know. You have many injuries during your career, but how is you fairly grounded in there, or do you have? And again, this is maybe a message for other athletes and up and coming athletes. I think a lot of them have these, internal battles constantly. I guess. Do you have many of them, and you're pretty good at managing them, or?
I see it a lot more with people around me. I don't really feel like I have it too much, but I think that I will. I think I'll take it to a place, and I almost feel like because I don't have them, I'm not at that place yet where I'm pushing my limits. But as I mentioned way at the start, that I want to do this right and I want to do it slowly. Over the next sort of, maybe now is the catalyst, this season is the catalyst to really kind of hone in and make things harder. And I can understand how people have them, because when you're investing everything in to getting better and it's not paying off or you're not performing, that's when you start having these like mental battles. So I guess the best way that a normal person can understand it is like if you're ill and you do everything you can to get better, you're drinking water, you're staying in bed, you're eating everything healthy, you are taking all the vitamins and supplements, and you're not getting any better, that's when it really annoys you. But like if you're just kind of like doing the right things and just kind of quite relaxed about it, then it's not too bad. And I almost feel like that to this point in my career, I've actually been fairly relaxed about all the right things. And if someone said, what do I want to improve on myself? I say, well, I should probably start by eating 2 liters of water and 5 fruit and veg a day. Just there's so many simple things. And going to bed like before sort of 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night because I'm scrolling on my phone. Like they're just foundational, easy things. But I guess in my head now it's like, oh, so I had a good year and I made decent money, and I'm like, if I keep doing these things, I might have a bad year, and it scares me that I won't make that money and that I won't have like my career will go backwards. So now I'm going into that high pressure thing, but there was no reason why I should have necessarily like live the way I'd say is live like a monk when I didn't need to in the past. So I guess right now is that kind of turning point, and I've set myself up to not have them internal kind of dilemmas. But I can see how easily they'll come, and even now at the end of the year I've ramped up training because I know that after my next race, 2 races which are coming up within the next couple of weeks, that I'll have time off. So I've ramped up the training. Even now I can easily see how if you turn up to these sessions, a lot of the time my sessions won't go bad because I won't let them because they're not that hard. I'm only trying to go 80 or 90%. So even if I don't feel 100%, I can always get them done. Whereas when you put pressure on yourself, so like I did a really good bike session last week, going into this week, it was like there was a lot of pressure to kind of perform again in that session. And I will have raced 12 or 13 times by the end of this year, which in triathlon terms is a lot. And I've raced really well, been on the podium 6 times and kind of 4th place another 2 times. And the other ones were T100, which are very hard. Like you're the best in the world if you're on the podium there, or one of. And I think that's because I've really pushed myself in them races, but in the training I haven't. So that means I've raced well, so I've had a good headspace in and out of them. I think one of the mistakes people make is that when they don't perform, the answer to that is, oh, I'm going to drop some weight, or I'm going to start training hard immediately again. But like, I won my Ironman, I was eating like KFC, I was just eating as many calories as I could for like the week after, it's just whatever I wanted to eat, I ate. Whatever training I wanted to do, I did. I rode, and luckily I held back because by the end of the week after, I felt a bit rubbish, but I never did any intervals for 10 days. And I guess that's, some people say, oh, it's easier when you win because you're on a bit of a high and you don't feel like you need to. But that is a mistake that I think people make in terms of consistency and longevity, is that their reaction to a poor result or result not as they expect is that they mentally struggle. They do the things that, like if you want to lose weight, like fair, I'm not against it. I think that there's benefits. You've got to do it right. You've got to get a balance of things. You've got to do it slowly. But like the time to lose weight is not it's not the day after you've done a big race, like, or it's not when you're ill, or it's not like when things are going wrong. It's like you need to find these balances, and I think that you can set yourself up to have less of them internal kind of battles by just, if you're a young athlete, not being so all in, because you've just got to think whether you're all in or you're not. To get to that top level, unless you're a childhood superstar like one of the Brownlees, because I train with them. We haven't touched on it, but I train on them alongside them every day for 2 years. I've just moved back. Hazal's retired. And Johnny's now a dad. And you realise that they don't understand that me coming late into sport, they can't relate because they had savings accounts set up for them because they were getting massive brand deals when they're younger. They were the future of the sport. They train crazy hard and they do 35 hours a week or whatever. But not everyone has to do that, and not everyone is going to be a childhood prodigy. And if you think you might be one or might not, the chances are you're not, because the people who are just are away with it already. They're already like living up like Remco or in the cycling, like 16, 17, like won the world championship by minutes solo, like just crashed and then got back on and rode through the field and rode off the front. Like, he doesn't have to be patient in his career. He can just surround himself with money and people that are right. But if you actually are kind of a normal person-esque, then the best thing to do is do it the slow way, because that's going to give you the best chance of success rather than like rushing it. Like, it really doesn't work. It's like, it might seem like the best idea, but you need to find it sustainable. Like, get a job. If you think right now, 3 years ago, I could balance a job, and I worked a bit in Cycle 360, a bike shop. I could balance that and training, and I'm glad I did, because the worst thing you do is you go all in 3 years ago, and then you get to this point when you actually, your endurance and your physiological state is in a better position. You've got more foundation of training, you've got more experience of racing, but then financially you can't sustain it because that was only ever sustainable for 12 or 18 months. So you've really got to like put these pieces together and think, how am I realistically going to get to there, like the way I want to? It's unique for every sport, but it's not. In today's modern age, it's easy to kind of like listen to things like podcasts and speak to people and kind of get all this information to plan out how people have done it, and don't look at the ones that are like the superstars, because they are not the easiest way to do it, and they don't fully appreciate the normal way of doing it, or the way that the bulk of people can do it.
Yeah, the bulk. Yeah. Interesting. Appreciate the insights. Very interesting conversation. Thanks for your time. Good luck with the last couple of races.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
And obviously, I'm sure we'll see you over the winter.
Yeah, back here.
Out the back somewhere. Anyway, well, I will be. So, and yeah, obviously, I'm sure we will speak, but good luck for next year as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Will. It's word out from Martin.
And word out from Matt.
Poor flimsy humans. Don't you wish you were flawless like me? A towering inferno of physical perfection?
I hate to pop your blimp-like ego, but you're not perfect.